Friends, I promised you that I'll give time for questions. So I'll take just hopefully 3-4 minutes to just state a few things. First, congratulations to all these fantastic heroes, very inspiring stories. And congratulations to Raghava, Bharat, and all of you. As Avinash said, sparing a Sunday is a mad enterprise. It requires great passion, it requires a bit of insanity, it requires some ability to reconcile your personal life with the community. In many ways, you are all change seekers. Some are actually making change, some are seeking change. There are two kinds of change, even here we can see. Some are universal issues, whether it's hunger or pollution or global warming or global peace. Plastics, as just before I came here, I was watching on BBC a half-hour show on plastics global. So China suddenly stopped importing all the plastic from the rest of the world, recycling, and that sent the whole world dizzy. One country said, we will not import any longer your refuse, and the world is in crisis. These are universal problems, and we have them too. There are also some special problems, particularistic problems, and that's where I think Avinash State will gloss over. There are very Indian problems that need not be there. Not that India can become Switzerland or Sweden overnight, but India can do a lot better given our resources and our opportunities in today's technology. I would only urge you to look at 5 things. The practitioners here, they have, whenever feasible, use technology. In case of Mr. Tilak, nothing great, some primitive technology, but in case of others, the modern communications technologies. And then practices, actual action. And do something sensible, something meaningful, something innovative to make some impact. And the third is the community spirit, bring in participation. Everybody is here seeking participation, not observers. Not people who applaud, but actual participation. And many of you are looking for doing something worthwhile with your lives apart from building a wonderful personal life which you're entitled to. None of us needs to apologize for leading a decent life, an honorable life, a good life. We want to do something more, not because we are great, noble, sacrificial giants or lambs, but because we all realize that the public good is for us. There are many things we can't really do at our home, however good we are. And therefore the collective, whether it's your road, or your water supply, your drainage, or your traffic, or the public spaces, or culture, these are important for life. And therefore the institution building. And that's where the whole issue of the governance or changing the incentives, making people behave differently comes in. And finally, attitudes. Attitudes do change, but they take much longer than we hope. Let me conclude with just one anecdote and then leave it to you at least the remaining time, maybe 10-12 minutes for questions. A man called Ignace Semmelweis was born in 1819. If some of you heard from me by various means, please forgive me, but I think it's an important story. He was born in 1819 in Vienna. Semmelweis rose to be a physician. In those days, the mortality rate at the time of childbirth, around childbirth, perinatal mortality as we call it, was about 40%. 40 out of 100 women died during or around childbirth. Not too long ago. Just about 170, 160 years ago. 40 out of 100 women world over, and Europe was already developed by our standards. Industrial revolution, technology, mass production, all these things were happening already. 40% women were dying. Semmelweis, as part of his practice, either because he attempted to find a solution or he discovered it by chance, serendipity, I don't know what exactly happened. He discovered that if only you washed your hands properly, before attending on a woman in labor, and then before going to the next lady to assist her, just wash hands properly. he discovered that the mortality rate was coming down to 1 or 2%, from 40% to 1 or 2%. What can be more glorious than that? A simple action saving millions of lives. The Semmelweis tried to educate his fellow doctors, not the fellow citizens of Europe. And they were in the forefront of technology at that time as they are today. Please wash your hands, many women can be saved. You know what the doctors did? They laughed him off. They said, you're insane, you're asking us to wash hands. Actually wash hands, what a foolish fellows. What a madcap. And Semmelweis was institutionalized. He was put away in a mental asylum. Until recently, in most mental asylums all over the world, people are beaten. In those days, you can imagine, 160, 170 years ago, he was beaten up brutally. And ultimately, Semmelweis died of those injuries at the age of 46 in 1865. That's the bad news about attitudes. It takes time. Let alone the ordinary people, none of the professional doctors whose job it was to save lives, none of them had the good sense to say, this man is shouting from rooftops, let's try and see whether it's true or not. Not one fellow did it. That is sad. But the good news is, the world eventually changed. Eventually is the operative expression. It didn't change instantly. If we are wise, it would change instantly. But because we are not wise, and yet we are genetically and otherwise endowed with a lot of qualities other animals don't have, things do change. That's where optimism comes from. Within the next 20-25 years, 3 great men came. Those who have some understanding of biology and medicine, they would remember some of these names very well. One is Robert Koch. Koch is the man who discovered the tubercle bacilli. Even today, doctors call tuberculosis Koch's disease. And Koch is the man who came up with the postulates. Even today, Zika virus causes microcephaly. Big name, many of you are familiar. Pasteurization, vaccination, all sorts of things. And the third man called Lister. Your mouthwash, Listerine, same not to Lister. These 3 were contemporaries, about a generation later, obviously inspired by Semmelweis, and the world changed dramatically. Now, we have 2 choices. Be sorry that the world didn't change instantly and Semmelweis had to die. We all die one day or other. Or be cheerful and optimistic. If you are on the right path, doing the right thing, focusing on the right goals in the right way, some things, if you are lucky, will happen quickly. Some things will take time. Some things you will not see in a generation. It will take, sometimes it may be an outlier. But things will happen. That is the beauty of man. Our challenges can be accelerated, can be magnified. So never lose heart. Never expect the attitudinal problems to be very simple. But never underestimate human capacity, human ingenuity to adapt, to imitate, and to transform. So I hope, because I know many of you are looking for, how do we make an impact in life? How do we change things? How do we be catalysts? You can and you will be. But don't aim too low. As long as you think clear, be rational in your approach. And damn it, you have one lifetime, do the best you can and enjoy yourselves. Wish you all the very best, and now the questions. We have 10 minutes left.
Yes.
Yes.
So first thing we are going for this capital intensive way of spending rather than labor intensive way of spending. So I think the major problem lies in that, because we spend a lot, lakhs of rupees on installing CCTV cameras and not installing a watchman or some kind of a stuff. So how do we address that kind of a thing? See, more people can be employed, so less crime will happen.
Ultimately, economics dictates individual actions. The enterprise is not bothered about larger nation building or how many people are employed. I put in so much money, I produce so much, at so much cost, I sell so much, I make so much profit, I make so much loss. It is for the institutions to create an incentive. And that's where governance and government do matter. For instance, we don't have the wretched labor laws that we have. We have more flexibility. Our labor laws are a bit like, somebody entering a train or third-class compartment, until he enters, he somehow wants to get in and grab a seat. The moment he enters, he wants to shut out everybody else. That's what our labor laws are. Similarly, the incentives we provide instead of all kinds of harebrained incentives, I would look at a very simple form of incentive. The government does want to spend money on that. Now, depending on the number of people employed, I give you X percentage of that. No. For instance, recently the government of India, they said we'll extend to many other sectors. I follow the budget speech very keenly. All kinds of sectors, and we'll meet all the welfare costs and the brought in from gratuity and so on and so forth. That's the right kind of incentive. So that the economic forces react in a sensible way. You're not caught in the competition, and the incentives are right. And I can go on and on. The skill, the productivity, the work culture, and so on and so forth. So, good intentions are not enough for good economics. Both in society and in education and in governance, we have to create the right kind of climate to make it worthwhile to employ more people as wealth creators, not merely parasites. Government is a fantastic provider for parasites, largely. Overpays, but most people are not so. Police is one of the exceptions. I'm not saying because of emotions here. There are some areas where they're stressed out because there's a monopoly function, there's no choice, they're underfunded, overworked. But a lot of other sectors, education for instance, that's where everyone is wrong. We are spending a hell of a lot, resources are not a constraint. 70,000 per kid in government schools. In Andhra Pradesh, 60,000 plus in Telangana. About 2 lakh rupees or so, I'm going to verify the latest numbers in Bombay city. We're not spending little. We're spending a hell of a lot. We're getting nothing out of it. So, government has skewed priorities and skewed allocation of resources. In some cases they overpay, some cases they underpay. So these things must be said.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, first the hero and then you.
Yes, and you've been in the government for a long time, and I go back to Avinash's question that 2,000 cars are being added. And what I see is like if the cars are being added month on month, year on year, how can the government control this problem? Number one. 3
things.
Yeah.
Simultaneously. One is effective enforcement, be ruthless enforcement, Mr. Talak is right. Don't be namby-pamby. Democratic is one thing, nice guy is one thing, but for the larger good, if individual behavior is not moderated, everybody suffers. We should not be namby. That's why when the police now have these pictures and they impose penalties, I feel very good about it. We all must enforce it. But much more important is the larger policy issue. Unless you build first-rate public transport network, chicken or egg situation. I actually want to travel by public transport. Anywhere in the world I will go by public transport. Supposing I have to come to ISP, what is my option? I hate traveling in the car, but what is my option? What is anybody's option? So we have to build first-rate public transport and then make the car impossible to use unless you are a billionaire.
Yeah, like in Singapore, I think.
Yeah.
But you can't do this one before building a public transport system. That's why I am one of the greatest champions of metro. One of the greatest supporters. The moment metro is over, I want to travel only by metro. My fellow is saying you are a madcap. It doesn't matter. I see a few madcaps. My hope is at least if I travel by metro and a few people travel by metro regularly, and then no, that last mile, 500 meters, if you walk, nothing, the world is not going to fall apart or something. If it's a little longer, if my limbs are athletic, somebody can pick me up or something, it's not a big deal, they can have bicycles, all kinds of stuff. But we must create this culture. World over, Washington DC, to New York City, to London, elsewhere, London in particular, everybody, big, small, they all travel away to London. And we have to do that. There is no choice. We can't simply add cars, as much said, because you remember the flyover in front of CM's house, Panjagutta, Begumpet, no, not the Begumpet one, but Panjagutta, in front of my house, between the Panjagutta offices colony earlier and then Pasha Court, etc., the gold shops. That flyover. The day it was inaugurated, there was a traffic jam on the flyover. So the iron law of traffic is the more infrastructure you create, the more traffic jams you create without creating public transport systems.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to. Like, for the last 15 years, the only focus is building infrastructure, but not on public.
Money is an infrastructure.
Yes.
If a 10 rupee solution is available, what do I get? If a 10 crore solution is there, 10,000 crore solution is there, I get a lot. That's a tragedy. Thrift was the strength of Indian governance earlier. I remember as an official, every rupee, every 1,000 rupees, I got, I would not waste a rupee. Today you're an idiot if you don't waste money. So tragically, that's one terrible, terrible. I'm not one of those who believes everything has gone down the line. There are a lot of people doing that. But this is one area, thrift. Very sensible utilization of resources is not our strength any longer. Very wasteful, very profligate, very reckless. I mean, I don't want to blame anybody, but I went to an allegedly temporary secretariat of one of the states the other day. My God, I have not seen anything more plush anywhere in the world. This allegedly temporary secretariat.
All temporary.
So,
They're thinking big.
we cannot afford waste. No country can afford waste. Only India thinks we can waste money and then get things done. World over, United States, the richest country in the world, all the moment they're fighting. What is this fight about? Every day we'll shut down the government, we'll do this. Basically waste, expenditure, waste. In India, one of the poorest countries on earth, with the largest number of poor, profits. No. Yes. That lady, young lady, first. Be assertive, otherwise you would have been.
I have a simple doubt regarding urban governance. If take Hyderabad, we have the HMDA, we have the GHMC, we have the panchayats, we have the MLAs, we have the MLCs, the corporators. Why is there so much chaos and still so much inefficiency? Like Gangadhar sir said that he carried his own cement and all to...
No, two brief comments. The greatest challenges of this country are policing and urbanization. Every other challenge is there, but the greatest mounting challenges, because with increasing urbanization, with increasing impersonal life, rule of law is going to be a challenge. Earlier, everybody knew everybody else, and therefore the social controls, Farana, Khandan ka hai, somebody's son, so-and-so's son, so-and-so's daughter, you must hold at high, so on and so forth. Now, impersonality and urbanization means that there is a real challenge in a traditional society. And the second is urban challenge, because it's huge immigration, not in situ urbanization, because the way we structure our developmental model, and therefore mega cities, mass cities, and all kinds of stuff going on. And we have a great challenge. And if you want to deal with that, that particular challenge, repeat the question now, I lost.
There are so many bodies that to govern the urban areas, yet there's so much inefficiency, chaos, this corruption.
So the basic principle, this applies to every facet of governance, but in urban context. Just look at where things actually run better. Whether it's in the city or in the state or in the country, there are areas where the government does exceptionally well. Have you realized that? Election conduct. I'm not talking of electoral process, I'm not talking of politics, of election conduct. You are second to none. Disaster relief. Given our technology and resources, we do a pretty good job. Post-disaster, we make a mess of things. Again, politics, we go all this. VIP visits. Some people call it another disaster. We do exceptionally well. You realize that? Why? Where authority and accountability are fused completely, we do very good. In urban management as elsewhere, if you don't have that fusion of authority with accountability, nobody knows who is accountable. Like an R.K. Lakshman cartoon long back, this officer comes running to the chief minister, somebody says, "Sir, inquiry commission came with these findings. Nobody is guilty. There's a massive scam, but nobody is guilty." To the spectrum, nobody is guilty. The court said, "No, somebody said, well, now some parties are saying, but where are the corruption? There was no corruption." So if you don't have authority fusing with accountability, we have a system of alibis. Having 7 or 6 parastatal organizations is a disgrace. You must have convergence, you must have authority fused with accountability, and you must have as low responsibility with the ombudsman system. I don't want to go into details. We have failed in all the spectacular, therefore there is this unholy chaos. No, absolutely, God and God alone. We do actually. Avinash is being a little self-deprecating. Police are doing an extremely difficult job. When I see the traffic cop, poor chap in the midst of all the terrible pollution in those centers, my heart goes out. And this morning when I went for a walk, because the vice president, I think, is in the city. Is he in the city?
He is in the city.
I know, it's regular, unfortunately. So, all these poor traffic concepts at 5 o'clock in the morning, waiting there. They do an incredibly thankless and difficult job. It's not everybody does a bad job. but we haven't built the systems for accounting.
Sir, while I was listening to all these great speakers since morning, when change should be actually substantive rather than momentary, sir, why is it that even after so many years of independence, we are not able to make a significant policy change where institutions are actually made accountable rather than momentary awareness campaigns and all these things? You have been a champion of local self-governments or service guarantee rules, etc. So, is it not change should be actually more
It's a
substantive?
big area. There's a time, nor this is not the time. Just because they came on a Sunday afternoon, punishing them. But very epigrammatically, two big issues for this day. I don't agree that good change is not happening. A lot of policy change in 1991 economic was a great change. A fundamental shift, done with relatively little disruption. India was the only country with all freedoms intact, could change its whole economic direction almost 180 degrees, and yet do it almost seamlessly. And our own feminism, we were a lot. The nation was a lot. So it's not that everything is unchanging. I don't agree. But fundamentals, there are many things wrong. We do a lot of retailing, but basically, we presume that a vote and shout are enough for democracy. Everybody has a vote and everybody can shout. So shout includes protest, dharna. Yesterday, we had a bandh.
Yes.
In Andhra Pradesh, Rasta Loko. I mean, we thought these two are the ingredients of democracy. I completely disagree. I'm not saying they're unnecessary, but they're the least of issues required in democracy. The most important thing is that each of us, not merely those sitting in these wonderful environments of ISP, but the poorest or the weakest or the most illiterate, whoever it is, wherever she or he is, must have some understanding of A, between the taxes and what happens to my life. What's the link? It's not some celebration or some tamasha, but it's my life. And B, what happens to the tax money that I pay? What am I getting in return? And how am I getting it? Unless these two things are clearly imprinted in people's minds, and therefore every institution must be designed to make this happen. Until that happens, you look for one great hero here, another great hero here, and Indians love to worship power. Therefore, whoever is in power right now, he is the Mahatma Gandhi. Narayana Modi, Rajiv Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, Janata, we have seen it all. N.T. Ramarao, Jayalalitha, MGR, we love to worship those in power. We are a country of stories. We see so many great virtues in them and think they are fantastic. And then we run them down very quickly. And then the next Mahatma is around. That's not democracy. So the basic principle, and whatever I've been fighting, and some success here and there, small success, trying to accomplish to the catalyst to bring about changes, how do you bring this calculus in people's minds? Therefore, I'm not a romantic believer that the people are wonderful in that village, therefore empower them. I know that we are rotten to the core in many ways, for a variety of reasons. But I'm saying, if I am the victim of my own perfidy, if my stupidity hurts me, or our stupidity collectively hurts us, then that's the best way to learn. As long as it's confined to myself or ourselves, let the rest of the world not bother. And that's why I give you the example always of an apartment dwellers association. If you mess up your elevator, you are the guys who suffer. How do other people care? If you mess up the internal roads, if you mess up your power supply, mess up water supply, you alone suffer. You must, as far as is practicable, not everywhere is it practicable, you must create a framework where the stakeholders also wield power with the responsibility of necessity, because failing it, they suffer. That's why I was the one who was instrumental in some ways in getting this ILAs, industrial local authorities. Everybody, my officials were complaining, sir, these fellows are not paying their dues. They were complaining, sir, there's no infrastructure. I brought all that together and I said, a great Vice Chancellor, Dr. C.R. Reddy of Andhra University, when two professors were complaining against each other, he summoned both of them and said, I've heard both of you and inquired, both of you are absolutely right. I told those fellows the same thing, both of you are absolutely right. Therefore, I am now proposing that you guys who need that infrastructure will take over management. You collect your own taxes and pay the municipality X amount. I made at the time, I think 30% or so. The balance amount you improve infrastructure, don't improve it, your problem. Improve it, you benefit. I don't care a damn. Both sides protested initially. Because my officials were more than happy to control the money and of course indulge in corruption. And the entrepreneurs were very happy to complain but not take responsibility. I forced them both. Quite a few places they're working, they don't work, I don't care. Less of it. So create that in an unromantic way. I'm not a romantic decentralizer, I'm an unromantic decentralizer. But we all have come to the conclusion that people of India are useless, they can't govern their own affairs. That's a very dangerous conclusion. It's a very dangerous conclusion because there is no way you can govern in a centralized manner. What we are doing is, what we are seeing is what we have to continue for. So I will conclude with the last question or so.
Yeah. Sir, I am Madhav Reddy, sir. Actually, you said example of Simon, the person who introduced the cleaning of hands. Actually, it was story like me also. Recently, I am propagating the idea of zero budget politics. Initially, people were telling I am mad. Last 2.5 years, I have been propagating and I got the results also somewhere, and I am telling, like, you know. But still, whether we agree or not, politician is the highest authority in any area. So politicians are investing money. They are not investing. They are, putting money like in gambling. So there is chance to win, there is chance to lose. So then once they win, they are looting the public. So to control those people, so I am propagating that you have no need to put any amount when you are attached to the people well before elections.
The point is absolutely valid. See, if you have a situation where crores are to be spent to bring a sarpanch or a corporator, there are many sarpanches in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana where crores are to be spent to get elected. And there is not a corporator probably in this city who did not spend $1.5 crore or 2 crore on average.
Yes.
And then expect them to be men and women of integrity is absurd. But the problem with that is, Madhav or me shouting from rooftops about zero budget politics or no vote buying or no expenditure, it will not change anything. We have to build an incentive structure in politics that makes it possible to get elected without spending that kind of money. Some money is to be spent to spread your message. And the rest of the world is doing that. It's not something new or spectacular. The rest of the world is doing it. Only in India, we spend more than any other country on earth. Even at our very low high purchasing power but low exchange value, India's electoral expenditure is the world's highest. We spend about 100,000 crores. That's my conservative estimate in a cycle of 5 years for the Loksatta, assemblies and local governments. But the answer is systemic. Unless you change the electoral system, localize power and enhance accountability, these three big things, our exhortations are necessary but not sufficient. Okay? Unless somebody is desperate, shall we conclude?
Yes.
My appeal, let me conclude. Okay, he is desperate. He is the chair.
For people, change seeking people, like could be me or people like who are here, it's also been observed that a lot of brain drain, energy drain is also happening. What is the suggestion for people like here, who are here, to stick to nation building? In aiding,
We already told you, don't talk about nation building.
We are all optimistic people, sir. We believe we should be part of this.
Without optimism, we will not be sitting.
Exactly.
That's why narcissism is also that though he tried to couch it in very half cynical language, don't take that language seriously. He is a fine public servant, we're proud of him. Unless we're optimistic, we're doing what we're doing. And it's the nature of the beast, it's the nature of the human beings to be optimistic. I mean, look at how far we have come. Considering what we could do, considering what we need to do, considering our opportunities and resources, maybe there were some shortfalls. But considering everything else, both Mr. Tilak and I are probably the oldest people here. And ask Mr. Tilak, his young days, school going, early employment or something, or my young days or medical school or something. His life today is infinitely better. So what business do we have not to be optimistic? That question doesn't arise. But in order not to dissipate our energies, there are some rules of thumb, nothing very profound, some common sensical things. If somebody has done something well, let's try and see how best we can adapt it to our conditions. Mankind did not progress by extraordinary innovation. That is given to a few unique human beings. They're always there. The rest of humanity adapted a little bit here and there, tinkered a little bit here and there, and imitated shamelessly. If you raise a child, you'll understand. Every child matures by imitating parents, those she sees around. That is the unique gift of human beings. So if somebody is doing something good, our first instinct should be let's replicate it, but with adaptation to local conditions. Don't have to be great heroes and great heroes. The second thing is, if we stick to certain areas where we have expertise, instead of being dilettantes, doing 1,000 things, we end up doing nothing. Third is, our resources, our time, our energies are always limited. Like in all economics, if you have infinite resources, infinite time, infinite energy, infinite problems, where is the problem? You're in that wretched place called heaven. It's a wretched place because it's a boring place where nothing to do. Because we are on planet Earth with finite resources, infinite ambitions, you have to manage. Therefore, the best way is focus in areas where you have the best ability, best opportunity, best talent. Don't be direct. And finally, be happy human beings. Have a sense of humor. Laugh. Let yourself laugh about things. Don't have no that, my God, no. The whole world weight is now on my shoulders. Oh God, nothing like that. Just learn to laugh. Learn to enjoy life. You don't have to apologize for enjoying the good things of life because you have one lifetime. But more important, even from the larger community's point of view, if we are so dispirited, so completely innervated, so exhausted, so emotionally depleted, if we burn out, we're not going to get service to anything. Because this is not going to happen in one day. It's going to take a generation, it's going to take generations. I don't want to say this excessively because you may be dispirited, but trust me, it will take a long time. But some can be accelerated dramatically because we have the opportunities of technology and resources today as now before an export. But it's a long haul. And in order to preserve ourselves for the long haul, unless we have happy lives, you can't be really productive because perseverance is the key. When I hear of the young people, I see young people, contrary to what Avinash said, he is himself a young man. You can afford to say what he said. The energy comes from the young people, idealism comes from the young people, innovation comes from the young people. The questioning why, or why not, why things are the way they are, and why not change it, question comes from the young people. They become old fogies, status quoism, traditionalism, this. But there is only one deficit in today's climate, and that is, sir, I sacrificed 3 months. Bullshit. It's a long time. Perseverance. There are no instant things. Yes, some instant things can happen, but oftentimes instant things that happen also instantly happen. For it to become part of the institutional framework and change incentives and change the attitudes, it has to be the long haul. So that's only one thing. Don't have 1 month or 1 week or quarterly balance sheets kind of an approach. You all go to business schools and this quarterly balance sheet is a disgrace to the man. It's a disaster. What rubbish is that? Yesterday, if I sold it, it was wonderful. If I sold it on February 28, my stock was wonderful, I was great. If I sold it on, let's say, any time in the last 1 week, I am terrible. I know of a couple, I don't want to name them. They floated a company. Yes. Many things did shot up dramatically. Sold it at the peak, it fell dramatically. Whoever bought it went bankrupt. They bought back the company at 1/50th of the price. And they are supremely successful. What kind of rubbish is this? That's not the way real life should be. A few people may benefit in their speculation. Real life is about real wealth creation. Wealth not necessarily about money, but anything of value to all of us, goods and services. That will not happen like a miracle. So don't be too filmy. One song and the scene changes. Life doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen. If it happens like that, life is boring. There's no achievement. Kipling's poem, If, have you read it? Read it. Again and again and again and again. Okay? I wish you all the very best. Good luck.